time to listen to you, Jim, I think. Again, welcome to the College of Nanoscale Science and Engineering. We just wanted to give a few minutes to some more people that were probably coming in. Parking has been an issue. You got to park. Some of you have had to park way in the back, so we're giving a little bit of extra time for that. We have a very interesting panel today. We have a bunch of people that have, I would say, been there, done that. They've been CEOs or serial entrepreneurs, and are here to share their insights. And we had an initial huddle session right before this event, right before we got down here, and I can tell you that we're going to have a very, very interesting discussion moving forward. One of the things that I did promise to show was this Dilbert cartoon, and we were talking about that again just before we got here. So let's just spend maybe a few seconds just looking at that, and a lot of that is very true to a large extent. I mean, I'm not saying that it's true for all the CEOs of the companies that are here, but it tends to be true for some of the other ones that we hear about. Yeah, that's right. So this cartoon actually was just released a couple of days ago. It was just on Tuesday. It was when it first showed up. So you can see how everybody's all hyped up, and hopefully it's not going to be, you know, like the telecom bubble of the 2000-2001 time period. But in any case, moving forward, I think we got a lot to learn from a lot of the CEOs here. For some of you that have not been to these bootcamp events, again, just to tell you real quick, we're going to get a 10-minute lecture on the issues and some of the concerns that the CEO usually faces when he's doing a startup. And then I will introduce, right after that, I will introduce you to each of our panel members. And right after that, we'll get into the Q&A session. And I'd like you to be interactive, ask questions. I mean, I have a few questions that I'm going to ask myself because I know there's a real, deep and quite wide amount of knowledge that we're going to gain from the people that are over here. So with that, I'll introduce you to our first speaker, who's going to talk a little bit about what it is to be a CEO, and that is Jim Grollinger. And as soon as I find his bio here we go. So, so Jim is an internationally experienced energy expert who focuses on business and technology development and commercialization. He is currently Executive Director of the Clean Energy Alliance, which is a rapidly growing national association of clean energy business incubators and related companies. Now has close to 20 members.
If we approve the next one on Tuesday, it'll be 23.
23 members already, that's pretty good. He's also Chairman, President, and CEO of Heartland Bridge Capital. So if any of you are looking for money, you can hit him up for money as well. He's looking at investing, I hope.
Well, we're also looking for have investors, so we'll go both ways. I'm AC/DC on this.
Okay. He's CTO of a startup company called Grid Thermal Solutions and Managing Director of Belgrove Associates. Can we give you a few more titles too, if that works?
Two of them are so-so.
Previously, he was CEO and President of EPB Solar, a solar energy technology company that designed, manufactured, and sold amorphous silicon thin film photovoltaic modules for power and BIPV applications. Prior to that, he was Senior Vice President for Business Development for CHI Energy, a Stamford, Connecticut-based renewable energy company operating in hydroelectricity, biomass, cogeneration, wind, and solar. He has an engineering degree from the City College of New York and an MBA from Temple University. Jim.
Thank you, Pradeep. I have no idea.
It's not you.
While we're finding where we're going, I'm going to tell a quick story. I was at the ARPA E conference in Washington 7 weeks ago. And in similar positions, except this guy was Stephen Chu, Secretary of Energy. And this guy was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who I don't need to tell you about him. So Arnold gets up to the podium, and he's talking about how it is he came to make this speech. And he says, you know, Stephen and I have been together in California a lot. And so last week I got a phone call from Stephen. And he's on it, we've done a lot together, and you believe we have to solve this problem of energy independence, don't you? Of course I do. Arnold, you believe we have to solve this problem of global warming, don't you? Of course I do. Arnold, you believe in free speech, don't you? Of course I do. Well, you're giving one next week. Pradeep called me on Tuesday. So, pleasure to be here again. I've been in front of this group of somewhat different faces once before. And this time talking about perspective, as it says, lessons learned from clean energy CEOs. We've got a very exciting panel, and I'm going to take just a few start-off minutes and tell you a few of my perspectives that are speaking from experience. As Pradeep mentioned, I was CEO of Energy Photovoltaics, also known as EPV Solar, for the period 2001 to 2006. Spent the year 2000 putting together a deal bringing investors in. And result is I was replaced for the lack of public company management experience. I had debate about whether that was a rational thing to replace me for, but that's what the owners and board decided. And we touched on some of those things in our little warm-up session as well. Lesson learned is don't assume, no matter what your position is, don't assume you'll be there forever. You may not be, you probably won't be, and I will tell you, if we ever get into a career counseling group, assume you will not be there forever and plan accordingly. But I'm now current, as Pradeep mentioned, I'm currently CEO of a company called Heartland Bridge Capital. It's a public company, lo and behold. And so I'm learning that, yeah, there are challenges, but they're not insurmountable, and who says you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Startups and capital, one of the things here, as I note here, to me the principle is simple, and one of the folks who was on my staff at EPV is present today, and I think he may remember this. I just talked to my staff about this, and we talked about this again in our pre-session. Cash is king, particularly for startups. The most painful thing, and it happens all too often, is you run out of cash. Great ideas, great technologies, great plans, no cash. Guess what? No cash, forever is over. So unless you have a sugar daddy, you'll never have enough capital. And don't forget the golden rule. And is it ever so true? He who has the gold writes the rules. And so when you're looking and you're running a startup company in clean energy, almost no matter what anybody tells you, equity is cheap at almost any price. Debt is never, never cheap at almost any price, with small exceptions. And we had, at EPV, we had a combination of equity and debt, and the greatest relief that I will always remember was being able to get rid of some debt that was being called on a particular day that would have brought an end to the company, replacing with a big chunk of, in theory, expensive equity that was so cheap I would have taken more. So how do you get it? You got to raise capital. As this little thing says, the investment that investment capitalists, venture capitalists, others make, the wager they make is on the jockey, not on the horse. The best technology, the best product, neither of those are certainly sufficient, neither of those are necessarily necessary to have a winning combination and to get success. And you know, in the old days, the story of Betamax versus VHS is a classic example. The worst technology won. The great technology disappeared. Good technologies help though, don't misunderstand. You know, I'd love to have a great technology, but let me have a good team. So build an experienced, diversified, and synergistic team that can create the vision, the charisma, and the power behind the company, and that's what investors will rally behind. But also remember the 3 times rule. Everything takes 3 times as long as you expect and costs 3 times as much. So again, you'll never have enough capital. And you find even tremendous companies keep big capital reserves because they know at times they're going to need them. So in startup companies, that should be an issue I ever have to deal with. My issue is never what I do with the reserves, it's what I would do with the accounts payables. That's the big reserve. Lastly, recognize reality. Very often the founder of a company is not the right person to be leading the company. In EPG Solar, I happened to replace the founder. I was then found not to be the right person either, but that's another story. But very often, founders are not the business people to lead the company to a successful future. I was at a venture conference, and one of the people from Kleiner Perkins was asked, what's the most important thing you bring to a company when you get in and finance it? And the gentleman thought for a little while and said, the most important thing we do, we fire the CEO. It is so repetitively true. But it's not so bad necessarily. Don't allow, if you're the founder, don't allow your ego to block the path to success. Because being the CTO, for example, of business success is a lot more fun than being CEO of a failure. Lastly, remember you're in business, you're trying to be and have a business. To have a business, you have to sell something. Don't strive to have the perfect product because you will never get there. And you'll spend all your time having the great fun in the labs developing, and you'll never have a business. You won't have to worry about being CTO instead of CEO because nobody will finance you, and so will be the game. There's always time for improvements. You have to get something out the door. And lastly, don't try to save the world. I'm looking at companies right now, and they all the grand and glorious things they're talking about doing. Show me a product you think you can sell at a profit. One of my other little sayings is, to have a business, you have to have a product you can sell at more money than it costs you to make it. If you don't have that, you have a hobby. Personally, I've got enough hobbies. Thanks everyone, enjoy the panel and the rest of us, and we look forward to all the interaction.
Good job, Arnold.
I'll be back.
Okay, let me introduce our next panel member here. Mike, you ready to go? Yeah. Mike is CEO of Energy Rotors, Inc., an early-stage company commercializing products for converting heat into electricity in industrial processes, solar thermal, geothermal, and biomass installations. Mike is an experienced entrepreneur and new venture leader with over 25 years of experience in sales, marketing, strategic planning, and general management for technology-based industrial products in new businesses and new markets. Besides Energy Rotors, Inc., he has held key leadership positions in U.S. Analytical Instruments, AT&T Capital Corporation, Inficon, Riodyne, and IDEX Health and Science Technologies, managing sales, marketing, and business development efforts in North America, Europe, China, and Japan. Mike received his bachelor's degree in chemistry in 3 years at Union College here in Schenectady. And he told us that all of those he's got experience in 4 companies, 4 startups, so he's got a wealth of experience we can gain from. You had a presentation?
I do, thank you. Okay, thank you, Pradeep, and thank you for inviting me to be here this afternoon. I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Energy Rotors, tell you a little bit about myself, and then I want to share with you some things that I've learned at this most recent startup. So Energy Rotors, you've all seen this. You probably saw it driving into work this morning. You see it all the time. This is waste heat. This comes off of industrial sites, commercial buildings, institutional buildings. This isn't pollution. The white stuff here is steam. It's heat with moisture, and if you look in the back, you'd see hot water going somewhere. This is energy that this company paid to make, and right now they're just throwing it away.